How often have you felt restricted to spiritual practices that often seem outdated and of little relevance in today's world? Are you discouraged to express your own creative talents and develop spiritual practices that are uniquely you? The Liturgical Rebels podcast is for people like you who want to reimagine and reconstruct their faith and spiritual practices. It's for those who want to reshape belief and journey closer to God's wholeness with peace, justice, and flourishing, not just for themselves, but for the earth and all its inhabitants. In today's episode, I will be in conversation with Federico and Emmy Borman in Ecuador. Federico is a member of the Cofan Nation, one of the oldest surviving indigenous cultures in the Ecuadorian Amazon. Emmy, originally from Kansas, has, through her relationship with Federico, learned about the Cofan way of life, and it has reshaped her understanding about faith, creation, home, and community. They both volunteer with the Cofan Survival Fund, which is dedicated to the survival of the Cofan indigenous culture and its Amazonian rainforest environment through conservation and social programs. This was a really intriguing conversation with the wonderful sounds of the birds of the Ecuadorian rainforest in full volume behind them. Well, Federico and Emmy, welcome to Liturgical Rebels podcast all the way from the Amazon, Ecuador. And it looks fascinating behind you. But yeah, I understand that you don't spend all of your time up in the Amazon.
Yes, well, thank you for having us, Christine. It's so nice to meet you. Right now we are in Sábalo, Federico's home village. But you're right. We travel back and forth to a town outside of Quito where we also live, and then come here to Sábalo in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador. And right now we are where we host some of our visitors over in the tourist area or the visitor area in Sábalo. So we're so happy to be with you.
Well, and it's wonderful. I mean, the more I read about what you were doing, the more interested that I became and the more itchy my feet became to come down and visit you. So thank you. But let's get a bit of background first of all. Emmy, you do not come from Ecuador. You come from Kansas, I understand. So why don't we start with you and say, how did you end up in Ecuador from Kansas?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sometimes I pause and ask myself that same question in the middle of doing the things that we do here in our life. But I met Federico in Chicago when we were both studying at North Park University on the north side of Chicago. And basically, we fell in love, and
That's very basic, yes.
I was really interested in how he was wanting to come back to his community and do something positive, and I found that to be really intriguing. And we dated for 4 years, got married, and in that time, I did have the opportunity to come and visit him here in Sábalo in Ecuador, and I saw all the skills that he had here in the jungle that he wasn't able to use in Chicago. And so it really opened my eyes to who he was as a person at a much deeper level. And of course, met his family. And so it's been a real adventure. I mean, when we first started dating, I couldn't even spell Ecuador. I tried writing him a love note and I crossed it out 3 different times. I didn't know how to spell it. Not something I ever envisioned, but I think when you follow the path that you're supposed to be on, you can have amazing adventures. And so then it's been amazing. Yes.
Wonderful. And Federico, now as I said before, you do not have what I would consider an Ecuadorian accent, but I understand you are a native of Ecuador. So give us a bit of your background and why it is that you don't have, why you have more of an American accent than an Ecuadorian accent too.
Yeah, absolutely. I get asked that quite a bit. Partially just because I did grow up in Ecuador. I was born here and raised here. My parents are both Ecuadorian, even though my dad is a son of a missionary. I don't say that derogatorily. But yeah, he grew up here in Ecuador speaking both Cofan and English because my grandparents, they moved to Ecuador in the 50s. And we're actually friends with, I don't know if you're familiar with the martyrs that happened with the Guarani.
Yes.
And here at the same time.
Wow.
So he grew up in that era, but grew up with the Cofans. My mom also, she's coming from a multicultural background. She's Siona and Cofan, so another native tribe from here. So immediately, I was born into a family that had multiple cultures. And growing up with my dad, he knew that it was going to be really important that I grow up speaking English. Mm-hmm. So thus, I went to an American school, spoke English at home and Cofan at home. So that's why I have the English advantage, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can hear all the parrots going by.
I can, and I love it. Yes.
Sorry.
It's just like the sun is going down, so all the parrots, all the birds are trying to find their home for the night. Trying to figure out where they're going to sleep, roost essentially. But it gets pretty loud. And it's something that we highlight when we bring our visitors down on, just being able to go and listen to all the dawn court or the evening court.
Oh, I grew up with kookaburras and cockatoos. I know what it's like. I know when I'm home when the kookaburras wake me at 4:00 in the morning. So I know exactly what it's like. So, but yeah, no, it's a wonderful backdrop to this. So yeah.
I've heard they're quite obnoxious a little bit, like the kookaburras.
They can be, yes. And Emmy, have you learned Cofan?
I'm in the process. So I take lessons once a week with Fede's aunt, who also grew up like my father-in-law. So she speaks English and Cofan. And the people in the community are very kind to me. Whenever I can say a little phrase, they're like, no, but they're very encouraging. And it's something that's really important to me to learn. So I can guess at what's happening and I can say some things, but it's a long process. All the resources we have were actually made from Federico's grandma and grandpa when they were missionaries. So they're the ones who made it into a written language. So it is really cool that I am able to use their resources.
Wow.
But it's not like there's a lot out there. It's only what the work that they've done that I'm able to pull from to try to study it.
Fascinating. Well, and I can imagine that it isn't just the language that's challenging to learn, but the whole culture. My dad was Greek, my mother was Scottish, so I know what it's like to grow up in a multicultural family and the challenges that it can create. Tell us, what have you found is the biggest cultural challenge with being a part of this new dynamic, as it were?
Oh, man, I don't know if I could say biggest, but I would say, especially when we're down in the Amazon, it's everything. Like, you think, I am a 34-year-old woman. I know how to walk. Actually, here I don't. You pull up to the boat and it's time to get out. And of course, with Cofan eyes, they understand which parts are sinking sand and which parts are regular sand. But to me, I'm like, oh, that's the ground. It's about going wrong. It's basic. But what can Or my mother-in-law will say, okay, go back to the canoe. We'll be in the middle of the forest. And she'll say, walk back to the canoe. I'm like, great, I can do that. Start walking. She's like, it's the other direction. Really, there's a whole lot of skills and a way of seeing the world that people who are living in relationship with nature every day have that I don't have downloaded into my system. And so it's a completely different vision of everything from the basic things like walking and walking.
That's amazing. And you said in the information you sent me that it's reshaped your understanding about faith, creation, home, and community. And I mean, I know that's big, but can you give us some simple ideas of what you mean by that?
Definitely. Faith, I would say, I've come to understand that we all have a cultural lens that we're viewing things through. Whereas in the West, or I can speak from the United States American context, often it's just more like truth or reality, what you experience as your own cultural lens, you think is how everyone experiences it. A small example could be, in the United States especially, we believe that often truth comes through the written word, right? God presents his truth through the written word, the Bible. When I came here, I met many people who I saw definitely following God's call in their life, responding to the Holy Spirit, but they are not literate. And so how could they be receiving these things that I clearly saw was God acting in their life, but they can't receive God's truth through the written word because they cannot read it? So certain things like that made me really start to not shrink my idea, but actually grow my idea of God's work in the world. That's been very powerful and beautiful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
As far as community, I have seen something I'm still really in awe about. Here in this community, you have to depend on each other in a very real way because you can barely do anything by yourself. Even going to the bathroom when you're in the middle of the forest, there's a certain word for Cofan, for your companion who goes with you to keep an eye that a jaguar or something doesn't get you when you're in a vulnerable position. As a independent American, that has been a big adjustment to always have people along with us no matter what we're doing. But that extends to the fact that even there's very deep disagreements or even things that are like wounds, you might say, where in the US, wow, if I had that with someone, I would never speak to them again, let alone help them. But here you see people with very different beliefs, even, a family that practices shamanism and a very evangelical pastor's family. In the US, that would be like, we don't talk, we don't look at each other. But here, they're still helping each other, working together on a daily basis. So you can strongly disagree and still live in community together in a very real way. So,
which is the way I think it should be. Yes. Yes. So much more the way that I think it should be. Now, Federico, what about for you? What have been some of the major adjustments to marrying someone from, a very Western culture? So much, even though you've obviously had some Western experiences, it's still a very different kind of culture. What have been the challenges there?
Oh. There have been quite a few. And I don't mean that negatively. There's a lot of growth that has happened from my side of things as well. Just growing up speaking English, growing up in an American setting for the most part made me think that I understood American culture. She was like, oh yeah, I'm pretty much American. This half of me is American, so I understand it all. It's not true. And I definitely found a lot of that limitation in my understanding was very basic when I started dating Emmy, and trying to figure out what are the different cultural norms. Maybe not so much as related to walking. It's not necessarily physical, but a lot of it is just like cultural norms of how do you interact with people. What's appropriate when you go to somebody's house, for example.
That is one. Oh, I tell you, that is one that I have struggled with too. Yeah.
And there's multiple levels to that, but a story that Emmy really enjoys is when I was studying at North Park, I would go to people's apartments, and the first thing I would do is I would ask them if I could use their bathroom. That's pretty normal, right? But the reason for why I would ask them is so that I could wash my feet before entering their home. And I didn't think people thought it was weird. I just thought it was, something that they were like, oh, okay, sure, go ahead. Yeah, everybody should do that. Because in Cofan culture, whenever you go to somebody's house, you wash your feet before entering their house. So I would just go into random people's...
barefoot.
Yes. So I'd go into random people's apartments and be like, hey, may I wash my feet in your bathroom? And they'd be like, sure. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'd wash my feet and come back out, and that was normal until Emmy was like, that's a little different. We don't necessarily do that in everybody's houses. So that's one of the things. But then on more of an emotional side of things, I think a lot of the Cofan way of expressing emotions, due to our language, it's limited. For example, we don't have a word for love in Cofan. We just have a word that means want or deep desire. Just, I want this. There's no such thing as love, which does get a little complicated when we start trying to describe the gospel, the love of Christ and the love of God. How do you express something that encompasses all of the desire to care for, to be there for somebody, to hold them, love them in not just a romantic way, right? So in Cofan, we're like, well, we want you. That's about as deep as it goes. So being able to express those things with a limited emotional language was challenging. And I think I've come a ways from there, right? But in the beginning, it was quite challenging trying to express emotions.
It is amazing the things that can be challenges. One of the things that I found was that, we'd be invited to people's houses when we were traveling and speaking and things. And, they'd say, would you like a cup of tea or coffee? And of course, as an Australian, offering tea or coffee is a sign of hospitality. So you always say yes. And so, of course, I always said yes. And then I discovered, Tom said to me one day, he said, they don't really necessarily want you to have a cup of tea or coffee. In fact, I got puzzled because sometimes people would then say, well, I better go and have a look to see if I've got some tea or coffee. And it's amazing the things that can have totally different kind of, or leave different kind of impressions that can create barriers for us when we're in different cultures. So I'm fascinated by that. I'd love it if we could spend some more time, but I do want to get into the whole thing of the Cofan Survival Fund that you've been a part of. I understand you volunteer with it, which of course brings up the fact, first of all, and I'll ask this again in another moment, is how do you support yourself? But this, I understand, is something that your parents really started, and it's dedicated to the survival of the Cofan indigenous culture and the Amazonian rainforest environment through conservation and social programs. Really important as far as I can see. So what does the Cofan Survival Fund look like, and why do you think this is something important?
Yeah.
Federico, I think. Yeah.
So the Cofan Survival Fund started out in as a formal organization in 1999. And before it was my dad was already laying a lot of the groundworks for figuring out a legal entity that could deal with the outside world on a more consistent basis than an election period. A lot of the communities were required to have a democratic system in place, which was not Cofan cultural. Culturally, it wasn't a Cofan idea. Cofans have dealt with chief systems for the past 500 years. So having to move to a democratically elected leader every 2 or 4 years was countercultural and broke down a lot of the strengths that the Cofan people had. So that's why the Cofan Survival Fund was initially created, because at that point, my dad was already being viewed as a chief of the Cofan Nation for all the work that he had done. So he's like, how can we continue this so that the rest of the world can understand it? Right? The Cofan people already understood, but how could the rest of the world understand that this is an organization that is going to help the Cofan people essentially adapt to a changing world, and thus hopefully survive? And it has succeeded in taking care of Cofan culture and Cofan beings. So us as humans, we have benefited greatly from the CSF, or Cofan Survival Fund. And I dare say that we are thriving now instead of just surviving. So that's a really cool thing to experience. But of course, the work in conservation is never really fully done, because there's always encroaching threats. I don't want to sound like really negative by saying there's always something coming at us, but the reality is that unfortunately there's laws that are changing. It feels daily. Feels like it's daily that they're changing, that we have to be constantly on top of. And that's where the CSF is acting now, to protect the rights of the Cofan people primarily, but also other indigenous groups within our neck of the woods, so to speak. So that would be northeastern Ecuador, along the Federico River especially.
Well, and I can imagine that it's a huge, what a wonderful blessing that is, because I know that many of the tribes not just in Ecuador, but Brazil and other parts of the Amazon have really had problems because they have not had people to advocate for them in the way that it sounds as though you have been involved in. I presume you're aware of that, and do you have the opportunity to help in other places too, or?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the issues that we have, unfortunately, does lead or come back to financial. Not having financial support to be able to extend to other communities as much as we'd like. Currently, we're working with the Cofan communities, and there's 7 major communities within the Cofan Nation. And then we're working also with other neighboring communities, such as the Quechua, the Sionas, and the Secoyas.
Okay.
So those are our main people that we work with. And we try to develop and keep our relationship open with them. They're our neighbors, so we want to be able to rely on them, and they can rely on us. So that's kind of the relationship that we have. But in 2008 and 2009, we actually had the ability to expand into other parts, including Peru and Colombia. And it looked marvelous. We were just so hopeful to be able to expand the support to these other communities, and all the other communities around were really excited about it, because we were talking about how can we protect our rainforests and protect our cultural identity in an ever-changing world. And all of these communities were excited and wanted to get on board. And then unfortunately, the financial crisis happened, and a lot of our support pulled, which, left a lot of these communities having to depend on other things. So yeah, that's
that's where it's at. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's at right now. We're still, working with them, and there's other NGOs that are working in the area too, that we're trying to support and work with.
So where does your financial support come from? I mean, how do you survive financially? You as a couple and the organization itself.
Yeah, so CSF gets a lot of its support and donor bases from the US and also grants from different countries as well. Right now, we have a Swiss grant, which has been really, really helpful for the higher education program that's putting Cofan children, well, they're not children, young adults, through college, high school and college. We've actually had 2 college graduates in the past 2-3 years, so that's been really exciting. And then, of course, we've got organizations such as the Moore Foundation that's been helping out quite a bit with our ranger program. Our Guarda Amazonas, they're Cofan rangers that have been trained on how to essentially use GPS, modern mapping systems, and data collection systems to be able to monitor Cofan territory and protect that area in a more tangible way, instead of just saying, oh, yeah, this is our land. We're going out doing patrols, making sure that there isn't any deforestation or illegal mining happening within these areas.
Amazing what you have to do. Not many of us have to worry about illegal mining on our properties. So it's wonderful that you were able to do that, I think. So
I would like to say we all should, because so Cofan, really we view what the Cofan are doing as a service that all of us benefit from. We're all breathing the air that the Amazon provides, right? Mm-hmm. And so we try to help people understand, and the Cofan themselves understand when they go out on these patrols and look for gold mining or deforestation. They understand that they're providing a service for the rest of the world, because without an intact Amazonia, the climate is just going to continue escalating in ways that are going to be untenable for all of us. No matter where we live, it will, unfortunately, not to be too doomsday, but reach all of us, and it already has. But the beautiful thing is there are people all over the world, including here in Ecuador, who are going out with, from the world's perspective, right? They are living in houses that are not so fancy, and they might not have a Western education, but with the knowledge that they have of living in community with the forest and nature, they're really foregoing a lot of financial benefits, because there's threats all the time. I mean, people, if we kind of backed off and said, sell off the Amazon, I mean, there would be a lot of buyers ready to give payouts to all of our community members. But we're trying to continue encouraging them to do this important work for conservation, not just so they can continue living as Cofan people in the forest with everything beautiful that brings, but for the rest of the world too. So anyway. And how we make it, I have a remote job, so I'm able to, in the US, I'm a curriculum writer. And
a what writer? Sorry?
A curriculum writer.
Oh, okay.
I work for a really amazing company called Transformational Curriculum Innovations, and different, usually non-traditional education systems like nonprofits approach us, and we write their curriculum. So my background's in education, and luckily now I'm able to do this work from here. So.
From anywhere, yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. I know how much people appreciate remote working, but that is the most wonderful example I think I've heard of the way remote working can be used. So I really, really like that. So what work do you personally do for the Cofan Survival Fund?
Right. A lot of it right now revolves around reaching out to people and talking to them and letting them know the work that we do. And from there, I'm plugging in and helping out with logistics and movements of peoples, especially right now with the Park Guard program or the Park Ranger program. I'm helping with that a little bit. But yeah, most of it is going to be outreach for me. And the tours. The tours is a little bit different. That's more with Zabalo community, I'd say, specifically working with Zabalo community, trying to bring visitors here and encourage the local community, well, my community, in continuing conservation in a tangible way. The reason why we do it is so that other people can come and enjoy a rainforest that's still intact, and it's open to everybody to come and visit. And Zabalo is very excited whenever people come down, because not only is it something that outside people can say like, oh wow, this is a beautiful place, but it also adds value to what we do as Cofans. Just to be able to say people will go take time out of their busy year to come and visit our home, and see the beauty that it has to offer.
And we can also employ community members in conservation as the guides, and providing jobs here within the community and conservation is really important because Cofan people are people too. And of course, they need some financial way to provide for their families. But we're trying as much as possible to make it sustainable and conservation minded.
So what would the average eco tour look like?
Yeah, that's a fun one. Essentially, you would land in Quito, which is the capital city of Ecuador. And from there, it's a day car ride to the port. And if you want to do it all in one day, it's about a 13-hour drive into the forest, because it's a 7-hour car ride. Then you change or get into a motorboat canoe and drive down the river to get to my community. And that's another 4 hours. So it's a long first day to get down here. But once you're here, there will be, of course, walking around the community to see what Zabalo is like. And then from there, we go out camping, which is more traditionally what Cofan people do to how they interact with the rainforest. Essentially, we go out camping because that's where we get our hunting, fishing, and most of our living done. So we go up the Zabalo River, which is a river that's off the main river system that we're on. And there we camp out. And it's a place that has been literally untouched by the industrial world. So it's still a very intact and pristine rainforest. And Cofan people still go up this river system to go fishing and hunting, but it's very low usage compared to what would be happening in other places. So you still get to see what animals would be like in their intact rainforest, how the trees are still untouched. And to some degree, the spiritual world is untouched as well. Because what we've noticed is the strength of a spiritual ecosystem as well. It depends on where it was and what's happening around it. And humans a lot of times bring in their own baggage into any area. So it's a very special place.
And how would you see, like the Cofan spirituality interacting with Christianity? I mean, is it very similar in terms of the spiritual dynamics? Or, I'm sure that's a question that a lot of our listeners would be interested in.
Yeah. Christianity is a funny one. It's kind of a loaded word at this point in the world.
True.
It's a big spectrum, right? Like there's Christians on one end and the other end, and so it's hard to say it from that lens, right? Yeah, and in many regards, when people heard about Christ, so to speak, the Judeo-Christian Christ, people weren't surprised here in Cofan world, in the Cofan spiritual world, it wasn't a surprise to hear that there was a Jesus Christ. It's like, oh yeah, most likely we've interacted with him in the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of the take on it.
Yes.
And the creator God is something that's there, but for a Cofan person, it's not somebody that you interact with on a daily basis. Because the creator God is the creator of not just this tiny little planet that's on the side of a galaxy that's insignificant, but the creator God is the creator of the whole entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
So for a Cofan person to say, like, yeah, we know that that's out there, but we don't fully understand it, and that's okay. But there's a lot of other spiritual beings that are around us that we don't see. That's okay too, and yeah, Jesus most likely was part of the creator God and is among us, but it looks different. It looks different than what a Judeo-Christian point of view would be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that doesn't really.
No, I think that's.
It kind of like goes around.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I've talked to Indigenous people from different countries, from here in the States, from Canada, from Australia, from New Zealand. And I think that one of the big, probably the commonality with them all is that their spirituality is much more creation focused, rather than, in a way, you could say, person focused. Is that true with the Cofan people too?
I would say so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Part of the Cofan belief system is coming from more primitive, quote unquote, belief systems, which I don't.
I roll my eyes at that point.
Yeah,
yes.
I know. I roll my eyes at that too. But animism is definitely still strong within Cofan culture, and being able to say, oh yeah, everything has a spirit and is alive and has a place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in many ways that's what Genesis originally was like, like
I think so.
everything had a
yes.
spirit, and we were supposed to be stewards of this planet,
Yes.
of creation, and help the kingdom of God be here. The kingdom come here, not some distant, otherworldly thing. It's here, present, and we're part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Wow. I love it. I love it. Getting back to, the issues in the Amazon, we know that deforestation is a huge issue, and the mining as well. And what kind of opposition do you get to, the fact that you don't want the deforestation, you don't want the mining to go on? There must be huge forces kind of trying to to come in and cut down the forests and to do the mining. And is that a huge challenge for you as both individuals and as people?
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is, because I think there is, in the conservation world, an acknowledgement that we need to keep our environments intact, not just for the Cofan people, but for the whole world. As Emmy was saying, this is something that isn't just affecting us, a quaint little Cofan village in the middle of the forest. It's affecting everybody in the US, Australia, Asia, all of those places. It's all being affected. And what we're trying to do is take our small step within our community to say, hey, we're standing up against it. Even though financially the opposition is, it's very lucrative to go into mining, to go into mass agriculture, to cut down the forest. It's very lucrative. Just within Zabalo, we were looking at it and just doing basic math, we could be very well off for the rest of our lives if we decided to sell out. But that's not what the world needs. That's not what the Cofan people want. So People want to still be able to live comfortably in an intact rainforest. People still want to be able to go hunt and fish and take care of their children and bring them up in a world that is life-giving through nature. But the opposition side of it is that, unfortunately, we can't solely rely on the Amazon rainforest anymore. And that's how we're trying to do and work with organizations like CSF to be able to find economic opportunities for Cofan people. Before, it was possible to not ever rely on the economic world or the industrial world. But unfortunately, because of how much the industrial world is moving in all around, yes, we do need to be part of that economy. We do need access to comparable healthcare and good education for our children.
Because part of it is trying to raise up leaders who will also be able to defend themselves against all of these threats. That was the beautiful thing of Federico's father. He actually passed away last February, but he was that leader who had both of those skills. He could defend his people to the outside world and also lived completely as a Cofan. And there's so many communities, as you mentioned, who didn't have someone who was able to navigate both worlds, and they did get taken advantage of. And so that's the balance we're trying to strike for the Cofan Nation is, yes, we have to be able to operate in a way where we can be taken seriously by the outside world in order to defend what we have, but also not be so removed from it that, as Fede said, you can't grow up really being a Cofan person. And so it's quite a challenge, especially when it comes to education, for example, because many of the opportunities the children have when they're living out in these very rural communities are very poor education system provided by the government of Ecuador with not a lot of oversight out here in the rural areas. And so kids will go to school all day, but the skills that they learn are not enough to help them, for example, get a job. And at the same time, they've missed out on this whole day of Cofan education when they could have been in the forest with their grandparents, learning how to be a fully Cofan person. So it's producing these kind of half, and not able to be a fully successful member of either community. And so that's, again, one of the issues we're trying to tackle through the Cofan Survival Foundation, as well as we mentioned, the Guarda Amazonas, the ranger program that's employing people to go out in their communities, experts in these areas, to be conservationalists in their own communities. So yeah, there's a lot of different programs that we're trying to fill in that gap to make it still reasonable and attractive for people to choose conservation and still be able to be afforded things like healthcare and education and the things all of us want for our families, right?
That's great. This is so inspiring to me to hear this and to see what it is that you are doing for your people and for all the people of the world, really. It's not just something that is benefiting you and the Cofan people, but it is benefiting, as you said earlier, all the people of the world. And I think that is something that is inspiring in many dimensions, and to me speaks to the heart of what those that follow Jesus are meant to be about. So thank you for this. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we finish here?
Right. I think just to be on the soapbox for a little bit longer, I think a lot of times we get, especially in this line of work, we get overwhelmed by how much needs to be done and how it feels like a losing battle all the time. But I think it's just if everybody keeps on doing one thing every day and keeps just doing that one thing, it's one less thing that we need to worry about.
Mm-hmm. And if we were all doing one thing, then boy,
right.
It would make a huge difference. Yeah.
It makes a difference. And I think my call to other people is do that one thing. Don't be afraid. Start doing it. You know what Emmy and I are doing here is small. It's not a big thing, but we're trying to do one thing.
Yes.
Which is continue to support the Cofan people and protect this beautiful, beautiful land that we have. We would love it if other people joined in and helped us as well. And they could do that through the cofan.org webpage. And of course, donations do help. But it really does come down to, just being able to step up and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a stand. And it's just that one little thing. And that's all I wanted to say.
Emmy, anything else to add? Yeah.
I would say yes, as you said, Christine. It is really inspiring. And I'm so, as Fede was saying as well, often in conservation work or when you're listening to climate news, it is just like very overwhelming that you want to turn it off and not think about it. But I just want to say to everyone who's felt that, I understand, but that there are people, I'm not going to get emotional, but there are people here who are every day trying their best to protect, still a pristine forest, and it still exists. And you can come see it with your own eyes if you'd like.
I would love to come see it. Yeah.
We'd love to have you. We'd love to have any of your listeners. We can make sure the links are there for people to find that. But it still does exist, that magic and beauty of nature allowing to be itself, allowed to be itself, allowed to thrive. There's something so magical when you are going down the canoe and it's not a zoo or anything, it's a forest. And then there's macaws flying overhead and dolphins and you can hear a jaguar at night when you're sleeping, which is a little scary, but also thrilling. And there are people who have not given up, even when there's so many things against them. They are not giving up. And so we should not give up either. And you can't love something that you don't know. So get to know the nature that's around you. And I think even that small posture of being curious, of wanting to know, of wanting to care about even your small backyard or your one tree. For Federico, it's this beautiful playground of 1 million acres of rainforest for the Cofan. But all of us have a small piece of nature that we can fall in love with. And I don't think that's worthless. I think that's actually incredibly valuable. And know that when you are doing that, there's a whole community here in Ecuador that's also with you in that. So we're all in it together. Don't give up. We can do something.
Amen. I agree.
Right here. So, okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much. It really has been an inspiring time to get to know you. And I hope that we may have more interaction in the future. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What a delightful conversation this has been. Such a joy to learn more about the Cofan Nation in the Ecuadorian rainforest from Emmy and Federico Borman, and to learn from the wonderful opportunities to be part of this world through donation or ecotourism. In the next episode, which I think will be equally as delightful, I will be in conversation with Weldon Nicely, currently part-time with the Christian peacemaker teams in Iraq, Kurdistan, and Palestine. He retired from pastoral ministry at the end of November 2013, but his retirement is devoted not just to his own grandchildren, but to all the grandchildren of the world through contemplative just peace building and writing about just peace and nonviolent action that confronts war and seeks to abolish war. I am Christine Sine, author of many books, including Celtic Advent, Following an Unfamiliar Path, and The Gift of Wonder. I write regularly on Substack and conduct workshops and retreats about spiritual practices, Christian Christianity and Celtic influence, and the spirituality of gardening. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the podcast. Please also share it with your friends or join me on Substack, Instagram, or Facebook.